Hello, my name is Ana Grace Alvarado. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella. Currently, I'm a PhD student at the University of California, Merced, and I work on assessing the environmental and social impacts of different agricultural products throughout their entire life cycle. As I work towards my PhD, I also work with a nonprofit, Bricks to Bread, that looks at building brick ovens for women and women's group and supporting them as entrepreneurs to have a means of sustainable income. I got involved with the MESA program and really in working with agriculture as I saw how large-scale agricultural products started to impact some of the people that I most care about. And so now I look forward to being a positive contributor to finding more sustainable practices in all of our agricultural systems as we all can consume good foods and healthy foods. So I hope to be a part of the solution and really taking advantage of learning about agroecology to inform more sustainable practices in our food system. I am a fellow from the Training in Applied Agroecology from the third cohort from the Multinational Exchange in Sustainable Agriculture Program, Ethnoecology or Ethnoecologia. The root words of ethnoecology really being ethno, so really referring to people or cultures collective body of beliefs, aesthetics, language, knowledge, practices, etc. And the other root word being ecology, so really looking at the interactions between organisms in our physical environments. And so the combination of these words are really looking at cross-cultural study of how people can perceive and then also manipulate their environments. So a group of researchers from Australia, Mexico, and Spain kind of organized ethnoecology, or the framework of it being kind of like these three different areas, being the cosmos, the corpus, and praxis. So this first one really being our belief system, corpus being our complete repertoire of knowledge, and praxis being our set of productive practices. So based off of numerous ethnoecological studies, it's really been carried out among countless cultures from different places on the planet, and then looking at the general features in the ways in which indigenous peoples of the contemporary world then conceive or how they use nature and resources. For example, in the case of like southeastern Mexico, where there's evidence of human presence for at least 3,000 years. And during this time, cultures have really been able to develop, but not only survive in these environments, but also succeed or thrive in coexisting in the environments in these spaces with high biological diversity. And something that I wanted to further explore under this umbrella term of ethnoecology was ethnobotany, because I found it really interesting and a great way for us to interact with our environment. So going back to these root words of still having ethno referring to our human culture and botany being the studying of plants, ethnobotanical knowledge is really kind of rooted in observation, relationship, needs, and even like traditional ways of knowing. And so the first works that were carried out in ethnobotanical studies were really just making lists or making a catalog of plants and noting their respective uses. And then when it became more of a research discipline, then it was really looking at the human relationship with plants and whether that be more symbolic aspects or more of how knowledge is inherently generational. We as human beings have really made use of plants throughout history, and we've generated this plethora of knowledge of flora in general, whether it be for edible, medicinal, religious qualities, or even the other extreme in looking at plants that are a little bit more toxic to us. And so it's noted that there are over 28,000 plants with medicinal properties. Mexico is ranked as the second country in the world with the highest number of medicinal plants, and the first being China. And this last bullet point, or something that I learned in this time kind of on the side, is that I found quite interesting was kind of learning about ethnobotany and how looking for information on this, whether I was looking for ethnobotany or ethnobotanica, and how the information or kind of the context in which the information was given was a little bit different, mainly because the idea of studying and what we consider as Western science, and that plant communication has existed before Western scientific validation, really. And so our collaboration with plants and with communities has really yielded various observation and hundreds of years earlier than Western bioscience. So it was really interesting to look up the differences in these contexts that were given in different articles, whether they were talking about indigenous and local knowledge about plant medicines, and it being this really historically erased or even retranscribed into what we now call science, even though science as we know it is very young, being that it's only a few centuries old, while some articles would talk more about science, knowledge, or studies taking into account all this science that has been done by cultures that are much older and have been validated but don't need the validation of Western science. Following slide is to kind of think about how we can all do ethnobotany at home. So these are two different resources to check out. The first one is more an exploration of biology of plant medicine. And so it's a group of ethnobotanists and plant biologists from around the world. And I included a picture of one of their websites, but they talk about pitaya, which is a fruit that's grown in Mexico, but also in the southwestern region of the United States. But their website really describes where it comes from, how we can see it grow, but they also talk about how we can use it as humans and how it can be different from other things like dragon fruit, which looks very similar but is slightly different. The second link is a pamphlet for Native American uses of California plants, which was created by UC Santa Cruz Arboretum. It's a nice little pamphlet and has some really cool pictures and a nice way to kind of get a general understanding of how we can interact with some of these species in our everyday life. Some references that I encourage you to check out, as a lot of the information that I learned was very cool and very interesting to explore. Thank you for listening and your time. If you have any questions or would like to further reach out, my email is on this slide, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.